Yo, so Bait and Switch recently got buffed from 20% to 35%, which immediately puts the spotlight on Cataclysmic, which is the only heavy weapon in the game to roll Bait and Switch. In this video, I'm going to compare some different options for Bait and Switch Cataclysmic and how it compares to the current DPS meta, which is pretty much just Izanagi Rocket and sometimes Reed's Regret. Here are the rolls for the weapons that I'm testing. I'm using boss spec for both Cataclysmic and Reed's instead of backup mag. I've already previously tested that backup mag is stronger for DPS, but I can make a separate video on this in the future. To proc Bait and Switch, Witherhoard is hands down the best option, but I'll also show you the combo with Izanagi since I know a lot of you are going to ask for that. You need all three weapons to proc Bait and Switch, so for the third weapon, I'm going to be using this Palindrome, which was just an arbitrary choice for a primary weapon that had reasonably high handling. I'm using a primary as a baseline, but you can pretty much run anything here. Later on in the video, I'll show you the potential DPS if you run something like a slug shotgun, for example. Here are the damage numbers that I'm using for testing, which are from a Europa Lost Sector boss. Witherhoard on a direct hit ticks 17 times after initial impact, and Witherhoard on the floor deals up to 26 ticks of damage for half the damage, about twice as fast as the direct hit ticks. Also, if a target is already blighted, a direct hit will deal this much damage. For the damage test, I'm assuming that you're shooting the boss directly, but if you're the one shooting the floor, you'll be dealing slightly less damage and DPS. In this test, for Izanagi Rocket, I'm assuming you're not saving extra special bricks or orbs of power for explosive light. The Izanagi Cataclysmic combo shown here involves reloading Honed Edge after every shot, but there's a different Izanagi Cataclysmic combo that's better that I'm going to show you near the end of this video. Here, I'm at Kali shooting Divinity to activate crit related perks, but there's not enough time to shoot all of the ammo before I wipe. So I had to cut some of the clips together, but I made sure to line up everything frame by frame to perfectly preserve the timing of the damage sequence. I added an artificial ammo count so you can keep track. For Reeds, I didn't include Vice Stinger, mostly because I recorded all of this without Vice Stinger and without realizing just how much of a difference it makes. Redoing that part of this video would take a ton of work, so I'm just going to make a separate video on Vice Stinger sometime in the near future. Anyways, here I'm shooting Cataclysmic and Reeds for quite a while, but realistically you're rarely ever going to be in a DPS phase for this long. I went all the way to the end solely for the sake of completeness. As usual, both Reeds and Cataclysmic have very high potential total damage. Here's the DPS over time graph for Witherhoard LFR and Izanagi LFR. As you can see, Witherhoard LFR outperforms Izanagi LFR in terms of DPS, largely because of the long Honed Edge reloads. Compared to just using the LFRs on their own, comboing with Witherhoard is higher DPS starting from about 5 seconds in for both Cataclysmic and for Reeds. Here's how Izanagi Cataclysmic compares to Focused Fury Cataclysmic if you're reloading Honed Edge after every Izanagi shot. As I mentioned before, I'll show you a better way to use Izanagi Cataclysmic later on in the video. Now, here's how the DPS for Witherhoard LFR compares to Izanagi Rocket. It's actually pretty close, especially if you replace the Palindrome I used with a slug shotgun. But if you have Wolfpack rounds from Gallarhorn, there's a noticeable DPS difference for Izanagi Rocket. Because Font of Might is pretty common now and affects each combo differently, here's the graph but with Font of Might active for the first 17 seconds. Nothing much changes, but it does close the gap between Witherhoard LFR and Izanagi Rocket. Keep in mind that Stasis Elemental Wells can be generated on demand, whereas Solar Elemental Wells require enemies to generate and can be a big hassle to have it exactly where you need it to be for when you start DPS. This gives Stasis weapons a major advantage. As a side note though, Witherhoard can generate Solar Wells with Explosive Wellmaker. So Izanagi Rocket is still probably the move for DPS, but I personally like using Witherhoard LFR for its neutral game outside of boss DPS. Since it's so ammo efficient, you can afford to be a lot more generous with your ammo usage and still have more than enough ammo for DPS phases. With Izanagi Rocket, sometimes you need to rely on special finishers and you need to be more worried about heavy ammo RNG. So although Witherhoard is the best thing to combo with Bait and Switch Cataclysmic, only 2 Witherhoards at a time can deal damage over time to a single enemy, one directly on the enemy and one on the floor. Here's a way to combo Izanagi with Bait and Switch Cataclysmic if your teammates are already using Witherhoard. You can use a sniper rifle holster to refill your mag while having a Honed Edge ×4 shot ready. And then instead of reloading Honed Edge after every Izanagi shot, you shoot your ×4 Honed Edge to proc Bait and Switch and then immediately switch weapons. You won't have a Honed Edge shot for the next cycle, but all you need is a regular Izanagi shot to proc Bait and Switch again. Doing it this way ends up dealing higher DPS than reloading Honed Edge after every shot. One last thing, here's the DPS graph showing just the first 10 seconds. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Peace.